Okay, this might be quite a bit. This might be quite a lot, but we're going to try it anyway. It is 7:15 in the morning on April 1st, 2023. Just so you know. Now, here's the fucking thing. I've been watching that what is it, Jordan Peterson with those other people talking about Exodus, them exiting. Now, the Exodus, and very interesting. Now I'm on part 3, and on that part 3, they started with something that triggered a lot. Okay, and that's the part where God said to Moses about put your staff down, and then he turned into a snake, and then he said now pick it up by its tail, and then he did, and then it turned back to a staff again. That transitional part there, well, apparently what they were doing was equating it to the idea of power and like ruling over people and leadership, staff, and then snake. Some sort of symbology of like chaos or nature, or I don't know. It's so interesting because like some people say snakes symbolize fertility as well and stuff. So you have a guy that has both of those things. Okay, now the archetypal story of Moses is like a hero's journey, to which he will accept the call and he'll go from snake to staff. Moments, like moments where God puts him through those ringers. And if you know the story of Moses, good for you. If you don't, I don't either. I only know like what they think you would know. But I do understand the idea of that hero's journey like that. And the interesting thing is, in my head popped up an image. And that would be this one. Do you see what I mean? So, in one hand is the torque, power, which was their symbol of, they believe, this is what they think, a symbol of power. And in the other hand, a snake. And I just found some eerie similarities to that. And so my thoughts were like, okay, this Cernunnos, which they believe that being on that cauldron, that might be who it is. That's what they believe. But this Cernunnos, is he more of like a prophet than an actual god? Because the rest of the depictions on that are, they say, God's dunking these soldiers in to some sort of cauldron to, I don't know, they don't really know. It's like to restore something, to give them immortality, some sort of vigor or whatever. They don't know. But there's weird depictions, and weirdly enough, that was a cauldron they think was made by Thracians and given to some, I don't know, whatever tribe that would have been that had that, the branch term of Celts. Now, I really got stuck on the idea of the Cernunnos, or Senawu, this being, is some sort of transitional person. Some sort of being that calls to arms the heroes, the fellow other heroes, the other warriors, the ones that are willing to go on this journey. So it's like it's an archetypal character, which this is all guesses. So I don't like, you know, don't take this for yourself too much, but this Cernunnos, this Celtic deity, is a transitional character of an archetype that perhaps is like from normality into like heroism, if you will. Kind of like this barrier, this way between. You have to access him. Through him, he is kind of an intermediary through what God is. So it's like you think of the archetype of Moses, and Moses is like the intermediary between he and God. So the divine plan that God has before you is something that is channeled through, oh my God, Moses, or Cernunnos is my guessing. I don't know though. Because you can go into the whole story of it all. Like, what is it to when God calls upon you? What does that mean? What does that have to do with anything for yourself? And it's like, well, when we have, according to certain people apparently, when we have one major focus, and that's God focus, it eliminates issues in our lives like anxieties or other struggles that we may be having, because we have a singular focus, and that singular focus is more divine. And because it's more divine, we can equate it to a divine plan from a God. A singular focus. God's telling me to do this. God wants me to do it. And whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't believe in God, well, you still having a singular focus is much more clear than having 50, because that causes these frantic anxiety moments. So that's where the idea of storytelling and mythology really is important to people, because it shows a character, a person, whoever that may be, that is enacting some sort of change with a singular focus. For the most part. I mean, like, I guess if you think of Star Wars, you think of Luke, singular focus becoming a Jedi, then eventually singularly trying to save his father. You think of Frodo, singular purpose, trying to destroy the ring for the good of Middle Earth. You think of the mythologies of, like, the focus of, oh my gosh, Heracles and his 12 labors, or 14 or 12, I don't remember. And the list can go on, okay? Like, it can be more and more and more and more, but I couldn't just rattle off a bunch of mythologies because I'm not well learned. Now, that point right there is a God-given singularity, and so from that, I start to realize, oh, like God consciousness, God frequency, and all that stuff. That is an actual thing. And so, this, going back, this Cernunnos, I believe that's how you, Cernunnos, I don't know, it's one or the other, it's always interchange. He is some sort of transitionary being. Whether that's archetypal, like he's just a representation of something for us to live up to, or an actual being that serves as this mediator, as a prophet to a God. And so I start thinking in my mind, like, okay, so what if throughout the histories, there's a point of lost history, right? Most of the Celtic history was lost and erased on purpose by the Christians, and before that the Romans. And we know that the Romans turned into the Roman Catholics, and they found a new way to impose their will through religion instead of through land seizure and borders of, it's borders of the mind instead of borders of land, right? So we know that that's what was going on there. So there's a purposeful erasing of these people, just like the Thracians and the Scythians and stuff. For some fucking reason, there was too much of a threat there. Well, I think the story in the Bible has been repeated many, many times. Not the same story, but what God is doing, what the creators, whichever one, they're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And so you look at these Celtic stories, and you say, like, God, keep in mind that Cernunnos being a prophet instead of a god. This deer god, whatever, this shape-shifting deer man, whatever you want to call it. This picture, this guy is not a fucking, possibly, not a god in the sense that we would understand it, but more like a tool that God used and was working through. Same with Jesus, same with Moses and Abraham and all the other fucking ones that are in the Bible. That's what the purpose was. So these stories have been happening over and over and over again. And we have these people that are laid out in front of us that we have no recollection of who they are. So again, any of the Celtic deities, or even the Germanic ones for that matter, there was some sort of use that these people had. Perhaps even the ones in the Greek ones, the Zeus, Hera, Apollo, and all those motherfuckers. Maybe that they were these divine beings that were acted through, but the stories have become faded. I don't really know, but it's something that's been kind of triggering in my head since last night when I saw that. I just was in shock. I could see the similarities of beings that are prophetic. And I know that prophetic beings like that, whether it be like, again, Moses, or it be Jesus, or it would be like Muhammad even, they are the epitome of the hero's journey. But that journey, just because we call it a hero's journey, it's not like it takes away, like, oh, because it's storytelling and that's all it's meant to be, and there is no more purpose than to tell story. Like, no, that's just giving it a label. The storyteller's job is not to create fantastical things for no reason out of thin air. I think the job of the storyteller is to take the reality and the truth and give it to people, like a bard would with music, or like a priest or a shaman would, or like the storytelling of the symbology and understanding what mythology is and the stories of our history, and learning to put them inside of things to hold on to, so that those truths of life can be gleaned from it. And that just so happens to happen with archetypes and or tropes or things of that nature that you like just, oh man, you just keep seeing repeated. You know, Joseph Campbell's A Hero of a Thousand Faces is an amazing example, and the entirety of his work is marvelous in this sense, and I really suggest looking into that. You should really check out Joseph Campbell's, either read the Hero of a Thousand Faces, or another thing you can watch is the documentary he did, which I put a link in the video, but I'll put it in this one too. Just to kind of understand where I'm coming from on this, and what the purpose of a storyteller is, and what we need to do as people. So let's go back again. Cernunnos, Celtic deity, unknown, just totally forgotten. They haven't a clue as the origin of this being or what he really represented. They only have smatterings of like ideas throughout history, but none of them are from before the Iron Age, if I'm understanding it correctly. So that's I mean, there's a huge chunk of time before the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, and then the Stone Age before that, Neolithics, and or whatever the fuck it's called before Neolithic. The Lithic Age? I don't know. But all those eras, that's like over 1,000 years or more. A lot of stuff is lost in that time. Think how much stuff has been lost since the Iron Age. Going into the age of like, let's just skip all the way up to the medieval era. The hundreds BC or AD. It's a lot of shit just lost. A lot of shit. Hundreds and hundreds of years. So this being, this deity, we're going to call him Cernunnos, I think is an archetypal hero, much the same as a Moses. He just has the same qualities. And I just, you know, it was the staff turned to a serpent of Moses, and then just that image of Cernunnos sitting cross-legged holding a torque in one hand and a snake in the other. It just like, it clicked. I'm like, wait a minute. That's the same. That's the same thing. It's not saying Moses was this Celtic deity, and that's when that was created, but I think it was a story of a certain, either way of life through the eyes of the creator, way of a certain kind of being, or an original story of a hero. Because a lot of our stories kind of branch from each other. And they are the kind of piece back to the original source. And whatever that original source is, we don't really know. But like, what can that all mean? And so I just keep thinking about this being like that. And it was just something I figured I needed to share, that like, I don't know how to feel about it. You know what I mean? I don't know if anyone understand. Just do this for me. Think of Moses, and just, if you have a hard time doing your own studying, watch that Bible series with Jordan Peterson and all those other dudes on there. Watch that and think about the symbology behind it all. So the symbology of Moses ascending through this eyes of the creator to be this hero archetype, and what are the tools that the hero archetype has. And so, for instance, his tools are, in the beginning there, he has the ability to have the staff that turns into a snake. And so he's transcending into two different realms. He's using this one object to say the side of mankind, order, power, and herding, like a sheep herding stick. I forget what those are called. I'm just going to call it staff. Or nature, the wriggling snake. The thing that is dangerous to hold. And that's why they think it represents nature, because the snakes are dangerous and they're shifty and stuff like that. And you can't truly predict which way they'll go and what they'll do. I don't know how true that is, but that's just what more learned people than me would say about it, so I'm just going to go with that for now. But Moses has the power of both. And he has divine God on his side. And so that divine God enacts him to make change for groups of people. And Moses, all his archetypes of like coming from nothing, essentially, like being born of nothing, but accidentally, if you want to call it that, into royalty. So there's two polar shifts in that thing. And then I think he just killed, then later in his story, he killed some people bullying a Jew or something, or I don't remember, a couple of Egyptians and all that. So he turned into this murderer, this lowly man, and now he's being talked to by God to go on this divine plan. And so now we have a case of this transcending of two realms thing. And so then I go to the Cernunnos thing. That cauldron, this one. You have him sitting there with the torque, which is the same thing as the staff. This is leading the people. This is mankind. This is law and order. Snake in the other hand. What else is on that cauldron? He's surrounded by creatures. He's surrounded by nature. So the symbology of you have this balance, but all around you is nature. And then on the other images on there, you see those warriors. I can't tell if it's I think they're being dunked into this tank by this being, and then all of a sudden there they go to march off to war. That's the two realms. So you're going from normality and into warfare, at least in this picture here. And you could see the two realms, where this being is the fucking mediator to that. I'm the one that will transcend you into it. And so you think of what they believe, and even what people in Viking culture would believe about dying. It's honorable because you go to a great place after. Well, they've been saying that the Celts believed in the other world in a sense, and that was where they would go, so they had no fear of dying. I think it was Caesar who said that about them too. It's there is no fear of death amongst them because they feel like they don't truly die. They just go to the next place. And so it's okay, there's the two dualities. So you have a multitude of dualities, but the dualities there are life and death. And after this warrior culture moves off into it. So those are the strange similarities that I see with Moses and Cernunnos. And I thought I would just... I'm still processing it. I'm still kind of in the throes of all this. I think you should look into this yourself, so to be forcing, tricking your mind into believing me. I just kind of look into it. I'd love to hear other opinions about this. It's what is the relevant symbology and archetypal story of Moses in your understanding, and how could you understand it to equate it to a being we know nothing about? Only visually can you see these similarities. So is there some sort of truth to it? Now keep in mind, my truth is a dream that I had where I felt this being testing of my metal. And as Kevin pointed out the other day, he said it's like a disturbance of the water to kind of just to see, where are you at? Let me just kind of feel this out and kind of see where this may lead. What are you? It's not a full-on testing of metal. It's more of a disturbance of the water, as Kevin would use the example of. And I felt that too. And it's what is the point of going from one side to the other? And I noticed the similarities between my fear and attack. More dualities right there. So it's and I was forced to kill this being in the dream. So that's where I'm like, yeah, this all seems to kind of coalesce together for me. Because at the end of the day, there's a weird compelling side of me that wants to unravel the gods that are lost. But there's also a compelling idea that I am at the guiding hands of the Creator. This Creator's given me purpose, and I'm on this journey. So I have these two things, and I mean, last night I was even like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Looking into what a Catholic would say is like idolatry, and even a Jew would say that, and so would a Muslim, an idolatry of false gods. And I'm just like, I don't know if they're false to begin with. And so I'm stuck on that is where I'm at. But I just wanted to lay this all out there and say, like, these are weird things that I've been fucking thinking about, and I'd love to hear what someone else has to think about it as well. Because it's definitely something of interest. And I don't want to, like, I'm not tooting my own horn about it, but I just think that I feel like I'm closing in on something. Maybe not important to the world of history, but important to myself. I'm closing in on something important here. With this weird Celtic deity, if you want to say that. This horned one. Because I think that's what Cernunnos means in Greek or Roman, I don't remember. I don't even know if that's his real name. That's why I had that. I was like, what is your name? And I don't know why Sineu was the feeling that I got back, but whatever. What was that, just my own imagining, or was that something answering me? I can never prove either. But I just think, okay, Sineu, this being, this Moses-like character, this archetype, this mediator between God and man, this divider of mankind and nature. There's something to it. Because I look at my book and I think mankind and Anaku, this division, the idea of what chaos and order. And those are the main stories that will blend into each other within my book. And all this shit that I've been doing on my own with my two friends, I think that we're onto something that's as thick when it comes to the deeper meaning of, as the Bible or any holy book or any holy story or story of gods or goddesses or what you would deem mythological. I think it's within the realm of all of those things. There's a story that can be accessed through the recesses of our own mind. And not only that, but the stories of all mankind. So we have a giant origin that we all secretly tap into. And I think that's the whole point of what I'm doing with the book. And this new being that just accosted me is like, on one side I'm like trying to figure it out in my real life, but on the other side I'm like, how can I put this in the book? Because I know, for instance, like the Bible, I'm not saying like those are just fantastical stories that are supposed to teach us, and that's all it is. I think it can be that, but it's not to say like, and none of that really happened. It was just fun stories. I don't believe that. I believe it all really did happen. And I believe it happens all the time, and it repeats itself. The same thing. I also believe that every culture has the same stories, just in their own tongue. Because it all did fucking happen. It's called a mythology. Whether the story of Moses, Abraham, and all that stuff happened in their time by those people, or they happened to a different type of people thousands of years before, and we're just retelling it. I think both are correct. Those are both easily correct things, in my mind at least. I mean, just the way the Bible is written. I thought about it. I'm like, why is it written so simply and so weird? When you read it, it's like, okay, a part of it translational. That's probably why, sure. But I think the other part is why it reads the way it does is because every single word has symbology in it. If I want to write a book which I plan on doing, a different kind, that is full of symbolism, well, the best way for me to do that is to simplify sentences so that every word can a symbolization be extracted from it. Take the narrative out. Take like the humdy-dumdy shit and the here and there things, and he thought wondering this and that, and then they ventured on southwest of. Take all that shit out and keep the core of it in. That's what I would do. So that the message can truly be felt. I mean, look at anyone studying the Bible. They could just read a sentence and be like, oh my God, and all of a sudden they could talk for an hour of the symbology behind that little sentence there. That's the point of it. It's an idea of transcending the mythological story into the story of mankind, which then gives us the idea of oneness with God. That oneness with God is looked at in our eyes as a religious ideal and an ideal of, okay, so because you believe that, now you are going to have to be this religion, and these are the doctrines that they fucking have, and off you go. When the idea is it's a triggering device that's used in the stories that have great symbols inside of them to enact a certain kind of, I wouldn't call it a chemical change, but like a change within your mind to access the idea of opening it to what would be this beam so that the conduit can be filled because of this being. And through that, you have the singular focus to take an aim wherever you so deem. I think that's what the Bible's about. If someone were to ask me, though, take that all with a grain of salt, man. This is merely one person's speculations on it. But I can't help but see all this. And what I find, let's just say, confusing, is if we do the dogmatic view of it and say you just got to believe in Jesus Christ, you got to believe in the Holy Ghost, and you got to believe in, these certain things, or if the Jews, you have to do these certain things, then why did a pagan fucking god, a false god, a deity, a idol, why is that helping me find all this? Why is a idol, idolatry, and blasphemy, why is that helping me find the same thing that the Bible teaches? That's my question. It's not like I'm trying to make a statement with that, but that's where mine's at. I think I'm closing in on something here. Because with what the Bible is, the symbology that hides within it, within its ease, in a sense, but within its vast openness. You can read, like, I think the perfect example of what I'm saying about how the Bible is simplified for the symbology's sake is I am what I am, right? I am that I am, or however it translates. That's just a small little, it's not even a sentence. It's a claim, right? Well, holy shit, does that have a lot of people are like thousands of years are still going like, what does that mean? That's perfect. That's symbology done right, or keeps you guessing for thousands of years. I think, in my mind at least. So I just, and then I go tracing my mind back to the idea of this, the stories, the symbols of Moses, Perseus and Moses. And I just think they follow the same story types that all the heroes have ever followed. All these heroes have followed this, not because it's, again, the hero's journey, not because it's like, okay, like, I think we get confused in our head, like, you hear the word a hero's journey and you think storytelling, archetypes for an idea concept in your mind. But in reality, what if this journey was one of the first journeys? I mean, these heroes' journeys all are, the reason they are that way is because all of our lives are that way. And we're all our own hero, and we all have our own journey like through the steps, like for instance, the call to adventure, then the refusal of that adventure, then the divine aid, God coming in the bush and talking to him. The first threshold, the first thing that's like, holy fuck, this is kind of difficult. And then after that, the belly of the whale, which is the road of trials. Then after that, meeting with the goddess, a female temptress. And then an atonement with Father, Pathosius, blah, blah, blah. Now, it's all the same fucking thing. So you look at Moses and you say, well, his call to adventure was the whole, he killed that Egyptian person. It says, yeah, right here. He killed an Egyptian overseer torturing an Israeli. So he had to escape to Midian. To which the Midians are weirdly connected. No, never mind. So that's his first thing. And then he finds a woman and he marries her. Then the second one's the refusal of the divine aid. And the burning bush comes to him. And he hesitates on what the burning bush wants from him. And he tries to refuse it, but he can't. It's more implied, his refusal of it. Then the belly of the beast, which is when he goes to the Pharaoh and asks him about, like, free the fucking Israelites, guy. And the guy's like, absolutely not. And so he has to do the weird plague stuff, right? Then, after that, they finally let him go. And so the next step happens, the road of trials, the atonement. And that's him literally going and starting to leave, but being pursued by the Egyptians and shit. Then, the Master of Two Worlds. So the ultimate boon, the Master of Two Worlds. Although the desert into which Israel were led was an inhospitable place, God supplied them with water and manna in order to satisfy their need for food and water. Or manna, or whatever that is. Later, God asked them to be his people, and they agreed, and he produced 10 commandments for them. Now, he conversated with God for 40 days and 40 nights. Moses did. And then before he came down, they made that golden calf, all that shit. And he pleaded for them to not. And then I think it says here he commanded them to kill the Levites and to wipe them out, and ordered the Levites, to wipe out the unfaithful. And from that point, they come to the Holy Land, right? Now, not only does that be echoed in my fucking story with Odysseus, my Odysseus is Moses, but that journey to which we all take is a symbol in here. And so this whole time, Moses, this guy, is the intermediary between God and man. But he's also this kind of divine being separating. Okay, so that's the story for the people, but I think the higher story would be the separation of order and civilization and unlawful, unruly nature. And he's this dividing being. He has the staff of power. Because in my thinking, if you have a staff of power, you have this symbology of it, which that would be the, I almost call it Carnix, that would be the torque. That means that through your rule is God-given. So you think of any form of king, and they're all saying, well, it was a God-given king. Whether that be the pharaohs way back in the day, or like in the medieval era, the kings. God saved the king, God saved the queen. God chose him, anointed him. He speaks on the behalf of people. I think of my book. I think of the Aevans. I think of the monarchs of, or the descendants who God communicated, the forgotten king, communicates through these beings and speaks to his people, and through his people, the idea of that Masonic understanding of the mass and the charging of the mass of the people, and how there needed guided intellect, and the figurehead would be a just philosophy. That just philosophy is enacted through a God because of a singular focus that whatever, that you would want to call it, but that singular focus is this being, this God, who acts to this intermediary, and this intermediary goes and controls the people. So you can see how mankind took the idea of control of mankind through someone who is considered to be an intermediary of God. So you look at God kings, and you look at the idea of people that are under the divine will and ruling the people. Well, those people in that divine will of that God were given change because of the hero's journey. You could use it for good and you could use it for bad. So the story of Moses, a man that God said he chose to lead the people, you could still use that for bad, but you can see why throughout history it's been so important to us that God wants me to be king. When someone says that, he wants me to be king of these people. I was chosen by God, because that story echoes. And then it goes back to the idea of that singular focus. The singular focus of a person alleviates their anxieties. When you're not all scattered around and shit like that, if you have a singular divine purpose, that's why we would call it a divine purpose, because it's God-given. That right there helps you direct yourself into where you need to go, and it alleviates not only your own anxieties, but through that singular focus, the control of the people, it alleviates theirs as well. So you can see how a ruling class would take hold of this. That's why I don't kind of brush off Illuminati ideas or the ideas of this hidden ruling class. Of course there's a fucking hidden ruling class. It makes too much sense with this kind of shit. So that's my thing. It's like, I see the story of Moses and his archetype. But then I'm just going back and saying Cernunnos or Senewu, he could be the exact same thing for his time and his people. Because he has the same similarity, at least in my mind, just based on a few visuals, than any archetypal hero would have. A true leader for his people. That's the whole fucking point of the story of a hero. As you come into manhood, and as you do that, and I would say true manhood, then I would think, well, this person will guide them. He will end up taking this idea through what the Creator tells of him, and because of that, chosen by God, people can follow that. Now, that right there, to me, says it all. You know, what is a leader? How are they chosen? What are they chosen from? What is it to be God chosen? And what does it mean to the people? I mean, I think you should look into that yourself a little bit to kind of see maybe what you think. I'd love to hear more opinions about this from more than one person. There's enough views to say at least 4 people are watching. I'd like to hear 4 views on it. Like, just like, what the hell? Like, am I onto something here? Or, you know, like, I'd love to hear more about this. You know, from another, like, someone else's opinion. You know, we could together solve something. Be our own little fun group of people. But I'm gonna stop the flow there, so I can kind of fucking think about what I just said. Because wow. Let's process that a little bit. Maybe we'll get back into it. Cernunnos, Moses, and the hero's journey. Until next time.